Daryl Hall and John Oates, known more commonly as Hall and Oates, are an American musical duo from Philadelphia. Daryl Hall is generally the lead vocalist of the pairing, and also plays a wide range of musical instruments. John Oates also plays a range of instruments, but primarily plays electric guitar and provides backing vocals as well as occasional leads. The two also write most of the songs they perform either separately or in collaboration. They achieved their greatest fame from the late 1970s to the mid-1980s with a fusion of rock and roll and rhythm and blues, which they dubbed rock and soul. Critics Stephen Thomas Erlewine and J. Scott McClintock write, at their best, Hall and Oates' songs were filled with strong hooks and melodies that adhered to soul traditions without being a slave to them by incorporating elements of new wave. While much of their reputation is due to the sustained pop chart run in the 1980s, they continue to record and tour, and remain respected by various artists for their ability to cross stylistic boundaries. They are best known for their 6 #1 hits on the Billboard Hot 100, Rich Girl, Kiss on My List, Private Eyes, I Can't Go For That, Man Eater, and Out of Touch, as well as many other songs which charted in the top 40. In total, they had 34 chart hits on the U.S. Billboard Hot 100, 7 RIAA Platinum albums, and 6 RIAA Gold albums. Because of the chart success, Billboard magazine named them the most successful duo of the rock era, surpassing the Everly Brothers. In 2003, Hall and Oates were inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. Billboard magazine had Hall and Oates at number 15 on their list of the 100 greatest artists of all time and the No. 1 duo, while VH1 placed the duo as No. 99 on their list of the 100 greatest artists of all time. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in April of 2014. Background: Darrell Franklin Hall and John William Oates first met each other at the Adelphi Ballroom in Philadelphia in 1967. At the time they met, each was heading his own musical group, Hall with the Temtones and Oates with the Masters. They were there for a band competition when gunfire rang out between two rival gangs, and in trying to escape, they ran to the same service elevator. On further discovering that they were interested in the same music and that both were attending Philadelphia's Temple University, they started spending time together on a regular basis and eventually shared a number of apartments in the city. One of the apartments they shared had Hall and Oates on the mailbox, which became the duo's name. It would take them another 2 years to form a musical duo, and 3 years after that, they signed to Atlantic Records and released their debut album. The two didn't seriously start working together until 1970 after Oates got back from an extended stay in Europe. 1972 and 1974, first albums. Early in their recording careers, Hall and Oates had trouble clearly defining their sound, alternating among folk, soul, rock and pop. None of their early albums, Hall Oates, Abandoned Lumkionet and War Babies, was very successful, despite being produced by such big-name producers such as Arif Mardin and Todd Rundgren. They had no hit singles during this time period, though Abandoned Lumkionet contained She's Gone. This song would be covered by Lou Rawls and Tevez before Atlantic Records re-released the Hall and Oates version in 1976. She's Gone, as covered by Tevez, did go to number 1 on the R&B charts in 1974. It was originally written for Hall's first wife, Bryna Lublin, and initially inspired by Oates being stood up on a date on New Year's Eve. Another Abandoned Lumkionet single, Las Vegas Turnaround, was written about Hall's girlfriend, flight attendant and future songwriting collaborator Sarah Allon. Despite the fact that none of the Atlantic albums were huge national hits, in Minneapolis St. Paul a number of tracks on Abandoned Lumkionet received significant airplay on local FM station KQRS, resulting in the album being quite a big hit locally. This was enough to push the album into the charts, reaching number 33 and staying on the charts for 38 weeks. 1975 and 1977, first hits. Hall and Oates left their first record company, Atlantic Records, after the release of War Babies to join their second label, RCA Records. Their first album for the new label Daryl Hall and John Oates was their first legitimate success. It contained the ballad Sarah Smile, a song Hall wrote for his aforementioned girlfriend Sarah Allon. It also featured an album cover in which Hall and Oates are overly made up with cosmetic blush to the point where they look like women, especially the long-haired Hall. Hall would later say in an interview for VH1's Behind the Music that he looked like the girl I always wanted to go out with on that album cover. Sarah's Smile became their first top 10 hit, reaching number 4 on the chart in June 1976. She's Gone, re-released by Atlantic Records after Sarah's Smile also went to the top 10, reached number 7 in October 1976. Hall and Oates followed those hits with the more pop-oriented Bigger Than Both of Us later that year. Though the first single from the album the Philly soul-oriented ballad Do What You Want, Be What You Are barely made the top 40, their second single was a smash. The song Rich Girl was Hall and Oates' first number 1 hit, reaching the pinnacle for the week ending March 26, 1977. 1977 1980, Leaner Years and Sacred Songs. After this small run of hits, Hall and Oates still encountered difficulty getting radio play. Despite touring constantly and recording albums with efficiency, the duo could not find any pop success for a number of reasons, mainly because of the popularity of the disco genre. By the time they released the rock-oriented albums Beauty on a Backstreet in 1977 and Along the Red Ledge in 1978, disco music was trendy and taking most of the spots in popular music. Hall and Oates released Ecstatic in late 1979, which combined rock with dance music, but the album did not fare well, although Wait For Me did hit the top 20. They did release a few hit singles during this period. The follow-up to Rich Girl hit the top 40, and It's a Laugh hit the top 20 in 1978. In 1977, RCA attempted to push Daryl Hall to the fore with his first solo effort Sacred Songs. However, after being presented with the highly experimental recording, RCA became unwilling to release what was, in their view, a non-commercial album. Sacred Songs was eventually released in 1980. 1980, Voices. The 1980s brought about significant changes for Hall and Oates. The pair felt that the biggest hindrance to their success was that their music was being filtered through outside producers, and that studio musicians were not familiar with their own tastes and thoughts. They also wished to capture the sound of New York City, which, by then, had become their home. As a result, instead of recording in Los Angeles, as they had done previously, they decided to record at Electric Lady Studios in New York, just 5 minutes away from their apartments, and began producing their own recordings with their touring band backing them in the studio. They also enlisted Hall's girlfriend Sarah Allen as songwriting collaborators, as well as beginning a working relationship with Neil Kernan, an engineer on Voices who would work as co-producer on their succeeding 2 albums. The resulting album, Voices, was written, produced and arranged by Daryl Hall and John Oates in 1 month, according to their authorized biography Dangerous Dances, and was notable for having a clearer style and better sound than their previous releases. The first 2 singles from the album charted fairly well, with How Does It Feel to Be Back charting at number 30. The well-received cover of the Righteous Brothers' You've Lost That Lovin' Feelin' just missed the top 10, peaking at number 12, but spent 14 weeks in the top 40. After the release of that song, Oates' contribution as the lead vocalist diminished on future releases. The third single Kiss on My List hit number 1 in April 1981 and remained there for 3 weeks. The follow-up single You Make My Dreams reached number 5 in July of that year. The other well-known song from Voices is the emotive ballad Every Time You Go Away, with powerful lead vocals by Hall, who wrote it. British singer Paul Young had a Billboard number 1 hit with a cover of the song in 1985. Though the Hall and Oates original was never released as a single, it remains a fan favorite on the duo's greatest hits albums and was featured on their Apollo Theatre CD in 1985, and is frequently featured in their live set to this day. 1981, Private Eyes. By the time You Make My Dreams was falling off the charts, Hall and Oates had already released their follow-up album Private Eyes. Having worked in the studio while Voices was at its peak in popularity, the two had already recorded most of their material and felt there was no need to repeat the previous album's formula. The result was the first Hall and Oates album to reach the top 10 on the Billboard 200 album chart, and the 4 singles from Private Eyes all reached the top 40. The title track and I Can't Go For That were nearly consecutive #1 hits, separated only by the 10-week stay at #1 by the monster hit Physical by Olivia Newton-John. I Can't Go For That was one of the few songs ever recorded by a white act to reach #1 on both the R&B and the pop charts. Did It in a Minute reached #9 in the spring of 1982, and Your Imagination peaked at No. 33. This album is now considered among the duo's best albums, mixing soul, new wave and power pop. 1982, H2O, their next album, H2O, a very polished, synth-heavy effort, became the duo's most successful album, with US sales eventually approaching 4 million copies. H2O reached #3 on the Billboard album chart and spawned 3 top 10 singles. Man-Eater, the biggest hit of their career, reached #1 on December 18, 1982 and stayed there for 4 weeks. The soulful ballad One on One, and a cover of Mike Oldfield's Family Man reached #7 and #6 in March and June 1983, respectively. Daryl Hall, NME, November 1982, according to John Oates, they recorded approximately 20 songs for the album, of which 9 didn't make the final cut. He went on to say they usually would have 5 or 6 tracks left over per album. One on One, with its clever mixed metaphorical references to romance and basketball, was used in NBA commercials of the period. The commercial featured numerous players, including Hall of Famer James Worthy performing a 360-degree slow-motion layup during the saxophone solo. For the H2O album, Hall and Oates made some permanent changes to their current band. Drummer Mickey Curry, who had appeared on some Private Eyes tracks, including the title song, replaced Jerry Moroder full-time. Bassist Tom T-Bone Woke, who had mimed John Siegler's bass line in the Private Eyes video, replaced Siegler full-time. These two joined the band's holdovers lead guitar player G.E. Smith, and saxophonist Charlie Mr. Casual DeChant. DeChant and Woke continued to perform with the duo until Woke's death in early 2010, while Curry returned for the Do It for Love sessions. 1983, Rock and Soul Part 1. By the fall of 1983, Hall and Oates were one of the biggest pop music acts in the United States. They had 5 #1 singles to their credit, 2 consecutive top 10 albums and were one of the biggest names on MTV. A cover of the 1957 Bobby Helms classic Jingle Bell Rock was recorded and released in time for Christmas 1983, complete with a humorous video of the band, that received extensive airplay on MTV. In 1983, they released their first greatest hits album entitled Rock and Soul Part 1. The album peaked at #7, and the 2 new songs that were written and recorded for that LP also became top 10 hits as well. The first single released from this album, Say It Isn't So, battled 6 weeks for the #1 spot with Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson's Say 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 at the peak of Thriller Mania. Say It Isn't So remained at #2 for an impressive 4 weeks from December 1983 to January 1984. The battle with the McCartney-Jackson single led disc jockey Peter Bush of New York's WPLJ Radio, which had just switched from rock to top 40 the previous June, to intro the Hall and Oates entry Say It Isn't So, So. Hall and Oates' follow-up single Adult Education received heavy airplay at both pop and black radio, and reached #8 on the Billboard Hot 100 in April 1984. It was accompanied by a dark, New York City-oriented music video set in a cave. John Oates later told VH1 that the clip resembled the Survivor TV show on acid. 1984, Big Bam Boom. Hall and Oates returned to the studio in 1984 after a rest period to begin work on the Big Bam Boom album. Unlike their previous album H2O, this album had even more of an electronic, urban feel to it, combining their song structure and vocalization with the latest technical advances in recording and playing. The album employed some of the most sophisticated equipment ever used in the recording industry at the time. Noted remix and hip-hop icon Arthur Baker worked very closely with the duo as a consultant, and produced dance remixes of 4 of the album's singles. The lead-off song Dance on Your Knees is basically in homage to Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5 song White Lines. Released in late 1984, the first single from the LP, Out of Touch, became the group's sixth #1 hit on December 8, 1984, receiving tremendous airplay. Method of Modern Love, which debuted on the pop charts while Out of Touch was at #1, reached #5 in February 1985. Some Things Are Better Left Unsaid reached #18, and Possession Obsession reached #30 in 1985 as well. The group's Live Through 85 tour to promote the album began in November 1984, sponsored by Pontiac's latest sports car, the Fiero. In addition, Pontiac allowed Oates, a skilled amateur racer, to drive in Pontiac's factory IMSA GTU race car in Camel GT Pro races. In April 1984, the Recording Industry Association of America named Hall & Oates the most successful duo in rock history. 1985, Live at the Apollo. Hall & Oates have almost always toured extensively for each album release. But in 1985, the duo took a break after the release of their Live at the Apollo album with David Ruffin and Eddie Kendrick, voices of The Temptations and two of their heroes. This was RCA's second attempt at a live Hall & Oates album, following the 1978 release Love Time. Live at the Apollo was released primarily to fulfill the duo's contract with RCA, and contained a top 20 hit with a medley of The Way You Do the Things You Do, and My Girl, both hits Ruffin and Kendrick had recorded with The Temptations in 1964. Hall & Oates had collaborated on the USA for Africa We Are the World project, and performed at the Live Aid concert in Philadelphia, with Ruffin and Kendrick. The Hall & Oates band also backed up Mick Jagger's performance at this show. Hall, Oates, Ruffin and Kendrick performed again at the MTV Video Music Awards in New York later that year, complete with an Apollo Theater-style marquee descending on the stage during their performance. Just prior to Live Aid, on July 4, 1985, Hall & Oates performed at Liberty State Park in Jersey City, New Jersey as part of the Liberty Concert, where they played an outdoor benefit concert for the restoration of the Statue of Liberty. It became a major music event, drawing an estimated crowd of over 60,000 people. In 1986, Daryl Hall scored a top 5 U.S. hit with Dreamtime, from the album Three Hearts and the Happy Ending Machine. That album also included the top 40 hit Foolish Pride, and the top 100 hit Somebody Like You, later performed by the duo live on their Behind the Music set. Although John Oates did not have a solo hit as a singer, he did receive credit as co-songwriter of the 1988 Icehouse Top 10 U.S. hit Electric Blue. Oates also worked as producer, co-songwriter and co-lead vocalist of the single Love is Fire by the Parachute Club, which was a top 40 hit in Canada in 1987. 1988 to 1990, the Arista years, Hall & Oates signed with Arista Records, their third record company, in 1987, shortly before the string of top 10 hits ended, in Tommy Mottola's effort to keep them under contract when their RCA obligation ran out. Their first album for the label, You Yeah, included the hits Everything Your Heart Desires, Missed Opportunity, and Downtown Life. Beginning with You Yeah, album and single releases were credited as Daryl Hall John Oates, with the ampersand or one missing between the duo's names. It was the last Hall & Oates album, other than Greatest Hits packages, to enjoy platinum success. They recorded one more album for Arista called Change of Season. The album's first single So Close reached number 11 and was Hall & Oates' last major hit. Another song from the album, Don't Hold Back Your Love, has become a Hall & Oates staple in concert. Change of Season was a more mainstream rock album than their previous work. Despite the fact that Ooh Yeah and Change of Season reached platinum and gold status respectively, they were perceived as disappointments. In 1989, they covered and did their own version of the Oasis song Love Train for the movie Earth Girls Are Easy. 1991 to 2006, the duo's occasional songwriting collaborator Jana Allen died of leukemia in 1993. Hall & Oates released the Marigold Sky album in 1997, which included an adult contemporary hit Promise Ain't Enough. They also released a VH1 Behind the Music Greatest Hits package shortly after appearing on the show in 2002. At the same time, Daryl and Sarah, professional personal collaborators, broke off their romantic relationship after some 3 decades. their friendship is still apparently strong. He has noted her help in his recovery from his 2005 attack of Lyme disease. Hall and Oates released the Do It For Love album in 2003, whose title track was a #1 adult contemporary hit. They have also released the Hall and Oates live DVD from an A&E Live by Request special. This album was the first release for their newest joint venture You Watch Records. Hall has also released third and fourth solo albums titled Soul Alone and Can't Stop Dreaming, and a live 2-disc solo album titled Live in Philadelphia. Hall and Oates covered Elton John's Philadelphia Freedom on the 1991 John Taupin tribute album Do Rooms, saying in the booklet, "We chose Philadelphia Freedom because the music is so close to our hearts, and the lyrics represent the way we feel about Philadelphia." Oates released his own solo album in 2002 entitled Funk Shui and a companion live concert DVD. Hall and Oates also released their first CD of covers, Our Kind of Soul, in 2004. It includes some of their favorite R&B songs, such as I'll Be Around, Love TKO, Dan Hartman's I Can Dream About You, and more. Hall and Oates are still on the touring circuit, traveling nearly as much as they did in years past. In addition, a DVD of live performances of the songs from Our Kind of Soul was released in November 2005. Hall and Oates released a Christmas album, Home for Christmas, on October 3, 2006, which contains 2 Christmas originals and covers. It includes a version of It Came Upon a Midnight Clear, which became their second #1 adult contemporary hit. 2007 A Euro Present. In September 2007, representatives from Montreal-based band Chromeo stated in a press release, "Indeed, Chromeo's idols Hall and Oates have asked them to collaborate with them on their upcoming record." Needless to say, the gentlemen are giddy like schoolchildren to be given this opportunity, as reported by Pitchfork Media. This collaboration with Chromeo was expected to be released in late 2008/early 2009, and was released as Live from Daryl's House. On May 20, 2008, Hall and Oates were honored as BMI icons at the 56th Annual BMI Pop Awards. As of 2008, their songwriting has collected 24 BMI Pop Awards and 14 BMI Millionaire Awards. There were 2 notable nationally televised appearances for the duo in late 2008. On October 27, Oates sang the national anthem before Game 5 of the 2008 World Series at Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia. Then, on December 11, both Hall and Oates appeared on the year's last episode of The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. They sang a satirical tribute to Alan Combs, as he would leave Fox News a month later. On March 24, 2009, Hall and Oates performed together on the American television show Dancing with the Stars. During 2009, the duo recorded a cameo for the movie You Again, performing Kiss on My List for the final scene and closing credits. On October 13, 2009, a 4-CD box set was released, titled Do What You Want, Be What You Are, the music of Daryl Hall and John Oates. This set represents the most comprehensive hits collection by the duo as it includes songs from various labels. Also included are 3 songs recorded by Hall and Oates with their earlier bands prior to their forming Hall and Oates as a duo. On October 23, 2009, in one of the last concerts at the Watch-Ervia Spectrum, Hall and Oates and Philadelphia area musicians The Hooters and Todd Rundgren headlined a concert titled Last Call. In the spring of 2010, Hall and Oates embarked on their Do What You Want, Be What You Are tour in the United States. They appeared on the American Idol season finale on May 26, 2010 performing You Make My Dreams. Also in 2010, Hall and Oates announced they would join a growing artists' boycott of the state of Arizona over the state's recently passed anti-illegal immigrant laws. On May 8, 2012, the two performed on the NBC reality singing competition The Voice. On October 16, 2013, Daryl Hall and John Oates were announced as 2014 nominees for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They were announced as inductees for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's class of 2014 on December 16, 2013. Songwriting. In an interview in a 1983 issue of Juke magazine, John Oates was asked about whether conflicts arose. John replied that we have our creative differences but we reconcile them. He said that if they both came up with a different way of doing something, they'd try it both ways and whatever sounded the best of the two they would use. Members: Daryl Hall, vocals, guitars, keyboards; John Oates, vocals, guitars, bass, backing musicians. Discography. See also: List of artists who reached #1 in the United States, List of artists who reached #1 on the U.S. dance chart, List of Billboard #1 dance hits, List of Billboard #1 singles. References. Bibliography: Laura Fissinger, Hall and Oates. Brad Gooch, Hall and Oates, Their Lives and Their Music. Nick Tosches, Dangerous Dances, The Authorized Biography. External links: Hall and Oates official website, John Oates official website, Hall and Oates, Behind the Music Remastered at vh1.com, Daryl Hall's official website Live from Daryl's House, Hall and Oates No Goodbyes fansite and board, Hall and Oates Radio, Hall and Oates Forever, unofficial fan blog and message board, Hall and Oates discography at Music Brains, Daryl Hall at me.com, John Oates at me.com.